Rabbi. It is with great pleasure that I ask my maternal uncle, and that would be Shmuli's great uncle, to come address us over here. His name is Rabbi Gelbish. He, not that I'm one to assess this, but he is a very prominent Talmud Chacham and a Poisik. Again, I'm not one to assess these things, but he's well known in his neighborhood in Brooklyn. And besides that, he is also quite the lawyer. He worked in corporate America and survived, right? He had a very successful career being a lawyer. And he decided to retire early to become a Rosh Koil. So he's not working anymore. He's a younger man once again. And supposedly we would look like each other. You guys think we look like each other? Twins, right? People say we look like each other, so that's another plus for him. And with no further ado, Rabbi Gelbish will give us some words of wisdom. Give him one.
Give him the mic.
That one.
So put it on him. Don't worry, they edited it, Don't worry. I gave him mine.
Which side's out? This one? This one faces out? This side faces out? Which face?
Yeah, the other way. This is the other way.
This what? This was inside?
You flip it around. Yeah. And then the same thing.
This flip it around also?
Yeah, that way.
That's wrong. Okay, got it.
Okay,
got it. All right, Rabbi is making me feel old.
Thanks, yeah, good. Now he has something I know you want to listen.
I find making me feel old. Calling me a great uncle is who knows. Okay. Anyway, in the Torah, we have a pasuk in the Torah. Torah says, "They say v'tokum v'hadarta pnei zoken." They say v'tokum, so the person is obligated to stand up in front of someone who's an older person once the person reaches 70 years old. And when he comes within your daled amis, you have to stand up for him. V'hadarta pnei zoken, and you have to glorify Pnei Zokin. So what's a Zokin? So Zokin normally also, you would normally translate it to mean an older person. The Chazal say, the word Zokin means Zeh Shekona Chochma, that means a Talmud Chacham. You have an obligation to Mahadir, to glorify, which in this case, at a minimum, means to stand up in front of a Talmud Chacham when he comes within your Daled Amis. This is the Halach. So the Poskim have a question, have a Shaila. It's a Shara Frein. The Minchas Chinuch brings it down in Mitzvah Reish Nun Zayin, I think. They have a question: what happens if the person that you're honoring is unaware of the fact you're honoring him? The case that the Chazal is speaking, that the Poskim is speaking about, is a person's a blind person. He's a summa. So when you stand up in front of him, he's not aware of the fact that you're standing up in front of him. The question is: do you have an obligation to stand up in front of him, since you're not giving him the honor? Right? Normally we bestow an honor on somebody, so the person accepts the honor, the person gets the honor. If he's unaware of the fact that you're standing up for him, is there an obligation to get up for him? This is the question that the place can struggle with. So it's a Shalas Shuv Shar Ephraim, I think it's Siman Ayin Ches, he declares it for Shaila, and this is the question. So the Shar Ephraim and others, everyone who deals with this question, says L'chura it's a Mefurish, a Gemara and Yuma. I have a Gemara and Yuma on Daf Nun Gimel, but it seems that this Gemara would be a straightforward, obvious answer to the question. What's the Gemara say? So first we have to go a little bit further back in the Gemara. The Mishnah there talks about how the Kohen Gadol on Yom Kippur, when he left the Lefnai V'Lefnim, when he left after he finished the Ketores, he walked out backwards. He walked out from the Kodesh HaKadoshim. So remember, he went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. He went into the Holy of Holies all the way into the Mikdash, right in front of the Aron. He did the Ketores there, and as he walked out backwards. So the Mishnah over there explains, it has a limud, the Gemara learns it off from Shlomo HaMelech. We find Shlomo HaMelech did this when he was leaving Givon to go to Yerushalayim. Then the Gemara over there brings a brisa, that the brisa says, the Kohanim, whenever they felt, when they finished their avodah, they would walk out backwards. Ulevim beduchonom, Levim, when they said the shir, when they finished saying the shir in the Beis Hamikdash, they would walk away backwards. Yisrael b'ma'amodam, and Yisrael and Maimed in the Karbonis, Korban Tamid. The Gemara tells us in Tainus that the halacha is that when a person brought a korban, it was necessary for him to be standing there when his korban was being brought. At least l'chatchila, it's a mitzvah for the person to be there when his korban is brought. So the Gemara says, because of that, since the korban tamid is being brought on behalf of the whole tzibur, on behalf of everybody, so they had a group of people called the Anshe Maimed, that was just like the Kohanim had a rotating system. And when they did the avodah, there were people called the Anshe Maimed that they would come into Yerushalayim, and they were split up. Some in Yerushalayim, some were in Chevron davening for Klal Yisrael. So the Anshe Maimed also, when they left Mamadah, means after the korban tamid was done, they would walk out backwards. So this is what it says, and then the Gemara says, "V'chein Talmud haniftem mirabai is liyachz upon of yelach." The same thing is true. A Talmud, when a Talmud goes away from his Rebbe, leaves his Rebbe. A Rebbe over here is talking about a Rabbi Muvik, because a Rabbi Muvik means Roiv Chachmosei is imanu, that most of his knowledge in Torah was learned from this person. Now, what that means exactly is not that clear. It means the most dafim of Gemara, almost the mass of his knowledge. Or it may very well be, I heard once a shir from Rabbi Yosheber Soloveitchik, that he said that he held that his father was his Rabbi Muvik, not because he learned the most blat with his father, but he said, but his father gave him the derech of limud. His father taught him the methodology by which he learned, and so therefore everything that he learned was attributable to his father, and he held his father therefore was Rabbi Muvik. So if someone has a Rabbi Muvik, he has to walk out this way, he has to walk out backwards. Then the Gemara brings a story. The Gemara says, Rava can have a mifter minei de Rabbi Yosef. When Rava would take leave of Rabbi Yosef, have a ozel achere, he would walk out backwards. Ad menagfin kare umistavan askuftot bei Rabbi Yosef dama. Ad menagfin kare, in other words, so he walked out backwards in a manner which he really wasn't obligated to. We'll see soon. He walked out backwards in a manner that basically he bumped into things. And when he bumped into things, he stubbed his toe or whatever it was, that he would bleed. And so it says, the menakfin kare, until his legs would be wounded, or misvasin, it would become dirty or bloody. Askufta, the Bei Rabbi Yosef, the door swell of Rabbi Yosef's house would be full of blood. Omru leil Rabbi Yosef. So they told Rabbi Yosef how Rava honored him by walking out this way. Hachi Ovid Rava. This is what Rava would do. So he gave him a bracha, the terim reishach, that your head should be above the whole area, which the way the Maharsha explains it is at the time of Rav, at this time, there were two yeshivas in this particular area, the yeshiva of Abai and Rava, and he gave him a bracha that when Abai is nifter, the yeshiva should be unified and he should become the Rosh Yeshiva over the whole area. This is how the Maharsha learns. This was what the bracha was. He gave him a bracha. So Rashi explains, Amru Leilu Rabbi Yosef. Why did people have to tell Rabbi Yosef that this is what Rabbi did? Why didn't he see it? He should have witnessed it. So Rashi Shuho Yamore Nayim Veini Maki Bedover. So Rashi, we know that Rabbi Yosef was a Saginor. Rabbi Yosef was blind. The Rishonim tell us that Rabbi Yosef was blind. He caused himself to be blind. He was mispalel that he should become blind because he couldn't control his eyes. He wanted not to look outside of his Dalet Amis to see anything other than what his immediate surroundings, and he couldn't control it. So he said, since that he would see things that he didn't want to see, it was mispalel that he should be blind. So Rabbi Yosef became blind. Rabbi Yosef was blind. So Rabbi Yosef was unaware of the fact that Rebbe was doing it. So the Mefarshim say, so you see from over here that a person has a chiyuv to mechabed his Rebbe, even though the Rebbe is blind. So the courts in Mefarshim Gemara is black and white. So what's the discussion? So the Shar Ephraim himself brings this as a raya, and the Shar Ephraim says, well, maybe you really have a raya just the opposite. That if in fact you're obligated to do this, so why would they praise him? Why would they bother telling Rabbi Yosef this? Obviously, it must be that he was doing something above and beyond what his requirement was. There's a middle, so that's why they praised him to Rabbi Yosef. They told Rabbi Yosef, but maybe you have a raya if I cared. So he says, no. The reason they praised him is because he didn't have to go to there's no obligation to walk out in such a way that you're bumping into things and harming yourself. Because if you look really in the Lashon HaGemara on the Ram, when he brings it down even by the Kohanim, it says element sadadin pneim v'holchim, means while they're walking out backwards, they're looking over the shoulder to make sure they don't kill themselves, that they don't trip on something. As a male, so really, Rava didn't have to, could have and should have been careful, but nevertheless he wasn't, and that's why they praise. So therefore, the Shar Ephraim holds that he has a raya from here. The Minchas Chinuch, I think, says that maybe it's not a raya, because once you're saying he did lifnim mishur sadin, so maybe the whole thing was lifnim mishur sadin. He's saying clearly the way he walked out in a way which was dangerous, or where he harmed himself, that was lifnim mishur sadin. That wasn't something he was obligated to do. So you see that he wasn't necessarily acting within the letter of the law. He was going above and beyond. So once he's going above and beyond, maybe the whole thing was above and beyond. So the question is, do you have a raya from here? Yes or no? So this is the Shar Ephraim's raya, and the place can struggle with whether this is or is not a raya. Okay, I think when we're finished, I think we'll see that it's not a raya at all. That the application of this Gemara to this question is a mistake. That's what I would venture to say. Okay. So now we have a Rambam. It's a difficult Rambam. The Rambam in Perek Hey from Hilchos Talmud Torah, the Rambam says this halacha: Kishem she'odam mitzuva mechabed aviv over yirasei. Just like a person is mitzvah is obligated to mechabed a parent and to have awe from a parent fear. Kachu chayib b'chvod rabbi v'yirasei. Similarly, he's chayib in the kabed of his Rebbe and having fear of his Rebbe, awe. For Rabbi yesemi aviv, and in fact, a person has to have greater fear and awe from his Rebbe. And again, we're talking about Rabbi Muvik. She'aviv havil l'chay olam hazeh, v'Rabbi shalom de Torah chachma is mevil l'chay olam haba. So he says because a parent brought him to this world, but a parent was not necessarily, and obviously it'll depend, but a parent was not necessarily mechanech him to bring him l'chay olam haba, which may or may not be the case. But as far as a status of a parent, he didn't bring him l'chay olam haba. But a Rebbe brings him to chay olam haba, to eternal life as a male. So that's greater, and therefore your obligation to your Rebbe is greater. Now, this is the Rambam in the beginning of Perek Hey in Hilchos Talmud Torah. Then later on, he says what the various halachas are, including this halacha of walking out backwards. And then in halacha, halacha Yud Aleph, halacha Yud Aleph over here, the Rambam says, Harav hamuvhak shirotz limchel al kvoida, that if a Rebbe muvhak wants to be moichel, and he wants to say, it's okay, you don't have to do it. Al kvoidik b'chol advorim ha'elu. All of these things, we said that a Talmud is obligated to honor his Rebbe, or any one of them, either l'chol talmid of le'echem mehem, or reshus biyodei. Ve'afal pisha mochal, even though he's mochel, chayav ha-Talmud lahadroi b'afilu b'shas shemochal. We'll see what that means soon, the end of the Rambam. But the Rambam says that a Rabbi Muva can be mochel on these things of honor that a Talmud is obligated to give to a Rebbe. So the Kesef Mishnah points out. Now, if you look in paragraph Shishi of Hilchos Talmud Torah, he says, "Kol Talmud Chacham mitzuva lahadroi afilu api she'ein rabbi," that you have to stand up in front of any Rebbe, any Talmud Chacham within the Daled Amos. So, okay, so there's a din of Rabbi Muvik and there's a din of a regular Talmud Chacham. So the question is that the Rambam over here in Halacha Yud Aleph says that a Rebbe Muvik can be moichel. He doesn't say the similar halacha in Perek Vav when you get to a Talmud Chacham, that a Talmud Chacham can moichel. He only says a Rabbi Muvik can moichel. So the question is why? So the Kesef Mishnah says, now truthfully, whether a Rebbe can or cannot be moichel, that's machlokes in the Gemara. You learn in Kedushin this month? Yeah. It's machlokes in the Gemara in Kedushin. Right, so Kedushin, so the Gemara has machlokes. It's in the box. Okay, so Rav Shemochel al Kvoidei is Kvoidei Mochel. So it's a machlokes in the Gemara. We pass in Rav Shemochel al Kvoidei Mochel. So the Kesef Mishnah says the Rambam is paskin at Kvoidei is Mochel, and the reason the Rambam says Rabbi Muvik, the Kesef Mishnah says, is the Rambam's coming to say even Rabbi Muvik. Now you would think that maybe a regular Rebbe can be Mochel, but Rabbi Muvik maybe not. So the Kesef Mishnah says that it's dafka Rabbi Muvik. That it's lav dafka, even Rabbi Muvik can Mochel. The Brisker Rav learns not like that. The Brisker Rav says a very beautiful shot, and he says as follows: "Is truthfully, in addition to the pasuk that we mentioned before of Hadarta Pnei Zokein, the Gemara learns out how do we know this din that you have to have koved and murder from a Rebbe? So the Gemara learns it up from the pasuk Es Hashem Elokecha Tira. The S comes to the Mar B'Talmidei Chacham. So the question is, what do I need two psukim for? I already have a pasuk that says that you need to mahader a Talmud Chacham. So Tosfos in Baba Kama asks the question, and Tosfos says one is for Rabbi Muvik and one's for a regular Rebbe, one for a regular Talmud Chacham. Now the question is what Tosfos means. Simply you learn Tosfos. If I only had one pasuk, maybe I'd only apply it to a Rabbi Muvik, and I wouldn't apply it to a regular Talmud Chacham. So that's why I need two psukim. That's pashas how you learn Tosfos. So the Brisker Rav learns that Tosfos means that a different shot. He says as follows. If you look in the Lashon of the Rambam, in these two places, the Rambam says use a different Lashon. In Perek Hey from Talmud Torah, he says, "B'kachu chayiv b'chvoid Rabbi v'yirosei." He's chayiv. He's obligated to mechaber his Rebbe. In Perek Vav, Kol Talmud Chacham mitzvah lahadrei. It's a mitzvah. It's a mitzvah lahadrei. Right? So the Brisker Rav is medayik, and he explains the Rambam like this. There are two different things going on over here. Mitzvah lahadrei means like a lulav and esrog. You got to take a lulav esrog, you got to put tefillin on. Right? The lulav can't be meichel you, the tefillin can't be meichel you. It's a mitzvah, right? There's no way to get out of the mitzvah. No one's going to meichel you and say, you don't have to do it today. Obviously, there are cases that you putter. But a mitzvah is a mitzvah. The mitzvah of Timahadar Talmud Chacham, that's something, that's a mitzvah, an obligation that you have to recognize and to mechabed Torah. That's not the Talmud Chacham's thing that he can be meichel. That's a chiyav, a mitzvah, like any other mitzvah. A chayiv of kavod and yira of a Rebbe, that's something you owe the Rebbe. That's something, it's a personal relationship. And as you have a relationship with this person, and this person is your Rebbe, this person is your Rabbi Muvik, it's Roib Chachma says Hemeno, it's chayiv, that's why it doesn't say mitzvah, it's chayiv, you owe it to the Rebbe. That's what you owe to the Rebbe. You owe to this Talmud Chacham. As a male, so the Brisker Rav says, therefore, a Rebbe, that Rebbe can be meichel, because it's the honor that you owe him. He can be meichel. That's totally in Rabbi Muvik, that's a din in Rabbi Muvik. So the Brisker Rav says, therefore, if you look, as we pointed out, Perek Hey is where he's talking about Rabbi Muvik. Perek Hey in Hilchos Talmud Torah, the Rambam is talking about Rabbi Muvik. There he describes all the different things that you have to give, the type of honor you have to give to Rabbi Muvik. That is something which the Rabbi Muvik he's the balabas over it. He can be meichel. Mashenkin the halachas in Perek Vav, that's the din of seva zokein. That's just mitzvah. He's not the balabas over it. Therefore, he cannot be meichel. So therefore, he says when the Rambam says in Halach in Perek Hey, Halach Yud Aleph, and says that you can be meichel, right, is only talking about the din of Rabbi Muvik can be meichel. So the special halacha that the din by Rabbi Muvik is as soon as he comes within eyesight, as soon as you see the Rebbe walking into the room, even if he's not within your Daled Amas, you have an obligation to get up. That is a special chiyuv that's independent of the chiyuv of Hadarta Pnei Zokin. You can be meichel on the special chiyuv. You can't be meichel. Talmud Chacham can't be meichel on the chiyuv of Hadarta Pnei Zokin. This is what he says. So therefore, the Rambam is dafke Rabbi Muvik. He says, that's what the Rambam said we saw before. The Gemara in Kedushin, Naflam with Beis and Beis, the Gemara brings a story. The Gemara brings a story that Rava, at his son's wedding, Rava was acting as, I don't know, you call it a bartender, I don't know. He was mixing up. He was a shaker there. He was mixing up the drinks, and he was pouring it, giving it to people walking around the table with l'chayims. And that's what Rava was doing. And he came to two of his talmidim, and he poured, and they accepted it from him, and they didn't show any discomfort. Or I don't know what he didn't show. It just they accepted it. So the Gemara says ikvid Rava. Rava had a hakpada. So the Gemara asks, why do you have a hakpada? Rava was meichel. Obviously, if Rava was walking around and pouring drinks and giving l'chaim to everybody, so it means Rava was meichel. So why did they have to? Would they have to show anything? So the Gemara says lahadr boy. Nevertheless, they had to do mahadra. So the way Rashi learns is they should have shown some discomfort. They should have shown that they wanted to get up, and they didn't. So you don't necessarily stand up fully, but you do the little dance that we do. We don't fully do what we're supposed to do, and you shake it up a little bit. So he says, so that's how Rashi learns. Right? He says the Rambam does. So in other words, and the Brisker Rav explains, according to Rashi, that it seems that really min hadin they're potter because they were Rebbe was moichel, but nevertheless they should have shown some discomfort. They should have shown a desire to. But he says from the Rambam, it's not mashma like that, because the Rambam Halachic, the Rambam we mentioned before, Harav Hamuvik שרוצה למחול על כבודו בכל הדברים האלה, או באחד מהם, לכל תלמידיו, או לאחד לאחד מהם, הוא רשוס בידי. ואף על פי שמאכל, חייב התלמוד להדרוי, ואפילו בשוש המאכל. So the Rambam says, chayiv lahadroi, you have to. So the Rambam's obviously saying this wasn't the lefnim b'shuras hadin, this wasn't something they should have just shown some discomfort. So the Brisker Rav learns, because the pshat is pashut, like we're saying, hider, right, vadar to pnei zaken, that's the obligation you have to every Talmud Chacham, not to your Rabbi Muvik. So Ein Hanami, what Rava was telling them was, I was moichel, the special dinim that I have, I can be moichel that as Rabbi Muvik, as your Rabbi Muvik, I can be moichel, and therefore you can accept the drink from me, that's fine. But you, nevertheless, when I came within your Dalet Amis, you have a chiyuv al tzvadar to pnei zaken. That's why the Gemara uses the lashon hadar hider boy, because the hadar to pnei zaken, that chiyuv of hadar to pnei zaken, you still have, because I can't be moichel on that, and that's why Rava had hakpada. This is how the Brisker of learns. It's a very beautiful shot in the Gemara in the Gemara Kedushin, the way he's understanding it. Okay, so this is the Brisker of. So what does it do with us? So if you look in the Rambam, when the Rambam brings down these halachis, when you get to why does a kohen gadol have to walk out backwards, and why do the Leviim, etc., why do they walk out backwards? So the Rambam in Perek Daled from Hilchos Beis Abchira, he says the reason is because just like you have a chiyuv of kavod of the Mikdash, you have a chiyuv of yira of the Mikdash, and then the Rambam says the din of yira is not of the Mikdash, it's not the stones that we have yira from, but it's the Rebbeinu Shloim who is mitzvah, who is the Rebbeinu Shloim mitzvah. So these dinim of walking out backwards, these halachas, this is the din in yira. That din of yira, we don't learn from the pasuk of hadar to pnei zaken. That we learn from the pasuk Ves Hashem lekechatira. So according to Brisker Rav, the Rambam, the way he's learning up in the Rambam, there are two different psukim. The two different psukim are two different chiyuvim. From hadar to pnei zaken, you learn up that you have to stand within Dalet Amis. But the din of yira and kavod of Ves Hashem lekechatira, that's a different obligation, and that's only for Rabbi Movik, and that's what he's saying. It's a different level. That's your personal fear and awe that you have to have of your Rebbe. So this din of Rava walking out backwards in front of Rebbe Yosef, that was machmas which din? Was that machmas the din of Yira, or machmas the din of Adar to Pnei Zaken? So l'chorah it's Pashit, al Hashem lekechatira, al the of Yira. The chayva of Yira, right? That is not dependent on the recipient. If Rebbe Yosef could see it or not, I, as a Talmud, I owe that to my Rebbe. I owe that awe and fear of my Rebbe, whether he's aware of it, that I'm doing it for him, yes or no. The whole shaila of the Shar Ephraim, the whole question is in the din of V'adar Pnei Zaken, of giving him kavod. There, the kavod is, if a person doesn't receive the kavod, okay, if a tree falls in the forest, nobody hears it, right? That's the question. The question is, can I give someone kavod if he's not accepting the kavod? He's not getting the kavod because he's blind. That's their shaila. That has nothing to do with the din of yira. That's a whole separate halacha. It was not, in the halachas, in their shaila is when they get to the halachas in Perek Vav, right? In Perek Vav in Hilchos Talmud Torah, the question is, if you have a Rebbe who's a summa, are you chayav to stand up in front of him because he's not getting the kavod since he's unaware of it? That's the question.
Rebbe is not a muvik.
That's not Rabbi Muvik, Talmud Chacham. But for Rabbi Muvik, the din of Yira, that has nothing to do whether he gets it or not. Right? You owe it because of your relationship, your chayv to him. You have to do it whether he's aware of it or not. If he's moichel, he can be moichel. But Yosef wasn't moichel over here, so that's why Rabbi had to do it. So you don't have any raya at all from the Ma'aseh with Rabbi Yosef. The Ma'aseh of Rabbi walking out and bloodying himself when he walked out, and people had to tell Rabbi Yosef because Rabbi Yosef was blind. Because that's not dealing with Rabbi wasn't doing V'adar to Pnei Zaken. Rabbi was doing Hashem lekechatira, and the din of Moira. Right? That doesn't make a difference whether or not the person can accept it. So what I'm saying it seems to me, is that the way the Brisker Rav learns up according to the Rambam, right, this Gemara is totally inapplicable to the Shaila. Their Shaila was a Shaila standing in front of a Talmud Chacham. Right? So that's a question. Right? It's got nothing to do with the case of Rabbi Muvik. This is what I this is what I think. The L'chorah. It seems to me that this shouldn't be a raya, but totally inapplicable. This is what I wanted to tell you. Okay, just on the parasha, just wait. Ask one.
If I can add, my father was Shiva, that he was a Talmud of Reb Hutner. He was a Talmud of Hutner. Reb Hutner was never Michael not to go walk backwards. Reb Hutner, you always walked backwards. You had to walk backwards. That was like number one thing you had to do. If you didn't do that, you were toast. So when you may not remember, there used to be something called carpet. There used to be something called carpet, and you may not remember. It's like the weirdest thing I had in my house when I grew up. They put plastic over the carpet, not to dirty the carpet. It was the most annoying thing. It was like this. It was this disgusting runner. It was always like turning yellow, and it was a ridiculous thing. But you had it over the carpet because you didn't want to get the carpet dirty, right? So when my shver went to introduce his kala, I have to be my mother-in-law. I wasn't around then, right? So my shver kept telling my mother-in-law, when you walk out from Hutner, you make sure you walk out backwards. You must walk back. You must walk out backwards. You must walk out backwards. And she says, that's ridiculous. You must walk out backwards. Oh, so they met with Hutner. Anyway, so they walk back. My shver walking back. Or she slips on that plastic because he had to, and she fell. Fall right on her face. She fell, and the plastic got wrapped all around her. And they all tried to get her out of the plastic. So this is the lore of in the Schiller family of walking out backwards. Another story was of Hutner. They brought when Arsenic opened up. The Hutner was very, I would say, you had to show him. You had to honor him. You had to give him respect, which he definitely deserved. There's no question about it. But he was very into this Talmud Rebbe concept. So when my shver once brought him some boys from Ohr Somayach to introduce him to Hutner, anyone else who would go to Hutner was a petrifying experience. He was a scary guy. He was scary, and it was very pressurizing. So this guy's talking. He had an earring. He had this. The guy talking to Hutner and says, "Oh, Rabbi, I forgot I didn't do the afternoon prayer. Is that okay if I pray right over here, right now?" I cannot tell you how strange that is. I put it in love. And he said, "Yeah, sure, get up and pray mincha right here, right now." So these are the stories of a Talmud and a Rebbe. So here, my uncle will continue with the parsha.
Okay, so in the parsha, I just want to share a word, which I think is a very, very nice word from my father, Zechron Levracha. The parsha, we find after the Milchama, where Avraham Avinu defeated the Malachim, the four Malachim, saving the Anshe Shtayim. So Melchizedek, Shem ben Avraham, comes to him and says, "Baruch Avraham l'kel elyon, koinei shamayim v'aretz." So Rashi says, "Koinei shamayim v'aretz, kimoi oisei shamayim v'aretz." And when it says, even though it says he acquired shamayim v'aretz, Rashi says, "Kimoi oisei shamayim v'aretz." Really, we say this in Shemon Esrei every day. In the Shemon Esrei, we say, "Koinei shamayim v'aretz." So the question is really, so if it meant Kamoi Oisei Shemayim V'aretz, so the pasuk could have said Oisei Shemayim V'aretz. Why does it say Koinei Shemayim V'aretz? Why did the pasuk use that terminology of Koinei instead of Oisei? What? It's the same question, right? So my father Zechron Levracha said, Pshat, this is the Gemara Psachim, where we have the same thing in the Shira. You say Amzu Konisa, right? So Rashi says there in Parashat B'Shalach, and really the Gemara Psachim says as well, is Konisa is chivavta. You were mechaviv, and you loved it, you desired it. So somehow, and nowadays we may not view it this way, but when someone made something, he manufactured things, even in those times when you manufacture things, you may have manufactured it really to sell it. It's not something that you necessarily wanted for yourself. When somebody went out to buy something, normally when you're buying something, you're buying it because it's something you want. So therefore, the lashon of konisa means that what? That I acquired it. That's what Rashi says, chivavta, you mechaviv it. It means because that was something you desired. So it shows a chib, it shows a love. So therefore, my father's attached as follows. If you look in Avodah Zarah, I think it's a Perek Gimel Avodah Zarah, the Rambam there explains what Avraham Avinu did. So he said, the way the world went off is they understood, they thought, they all believed, all the Avodah Zarah, they initially believed that the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world. Right? But in English, we would call them agnostic. They said, the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world, but he's too big to bother with it. He doesn't care about it anymore. He created it, and then he handed it off to his Yeshivat Ohr Somayach. He gave it over to the Malachim, to the stars, to the galaxies, that they should run the world. And he had no longer Rebbe didn't have any interest in it. And therefore, that's when they started making Avodah Zarah. Similar as first they started deifying or serving the Malachim, And then ultimately they forgot about that, and they just had these symbols that they thought had some meaning to it. And that's how Avodah Zarah, that's what the toys of Avodah Zarah start. And Avram Avinu came, and he explained that the Rebbe Shalom created the world, and he's a shaylet, he's the Baal HaBira, he still owns the Bira, he still controls the Bira, and he still runs the Bira, he still runs the palace. And we have to serve Hashem Echad only, and that's how monotheism starts. This was Avram Avinu. So what Malki Tzedek was saying is Avram should be special by the Rebbe Shalom. The Rebbe Shalom should be Mevorech. Avram, he said it, the Koine Shemayim Voretz, not the Oisei, because of course the Rebbe Shalom was the Oisei Shemayim Voretz. But the concept of Koine means it's mechaviv. It means it's not that you made it and then you leave it, right? You make it and you keep it because it's something you want. It's something whatever reason. However, we can say that Hakadosh Baruch Hu is mechaviv it. So the reason you would use the word of Koine rather than Oisei is because Koine represents this concept that it's something that I made to keep. It's something I wanted. It's something that I'm still involved with. And therefore, Malki Tzedek, when he came to give a bracha to Avram, he said, "You're bench to the Rebbe Shalom that's Koine Shemayim Voretz, because you, Avram, you taught us, and you're teaching us this concept of Koine Shemayim Voretz." And I think that's why we say it in Shemon Esrei as well. Is the reason we say it is because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is saying Oisei is true, that's the truth, but it doesn't teach us and tell us that the Rebbe Shalom is still involved and has an interest beside Bahashkacha Protas and everything else. So this is a very nice prat, I think, that my father said in this week's parasha, which I just wanted to share with you.
Good.